Hi, my name is Tomasz Fechner. I am a classical guitarist living in Los Angeles, California. I'm very happy to be here with you virtually and to talk a little bit about my experiences connected with being an international student in the United States. I'll talk about the differences between studying music in Europe and studying music in the United States, because it's quite different, and there are many misconceptions that people have. So I'm going to discuss all of them and also tell you a little bit about my history. So I ended up here by accident. I've always wanted to do my postgraduate degree in Germany, but then I applied for something what was called Fulbright scholarship. This is one of the most popular student exchange programs between America and other countries. You probably might have heard about it. So basically, Fulbright scholarships allows you to go to America and pursue a graduate program that you want. It doesn't have to be music, it can be something else. It's a wonderful opportunity also to meet other international students from various countries who study something completely different. I really enjoyed my experience. So I applied for this scholarship because there was another Fulbright scholar who was studying music in Poland. He was an American who came to Poland on Fulbright scholarship, and he encouraged me to apply. At first, it felt like a huge long shot, but it worked out. So right now, this is my 6th year in the United States. I managed to finish here 2 degrees, and who would have known that I would be here for such a long time. To go back a little bit, I did my bachelor's degree and my master's degree in Poland, so I know quite well what studying music is like in Poland. I also went through the traditional public school of music system to prepare myself to be a music student in Poland. But then when I got closer to the graduation, I felt that I was missing something a little bit. What I can tell you is that my studying in Poland was strongly focused on purely practicing. In terms of the academics, we did have some classes, but to be honest, it felt like an addition to practicing. It's quite different. So one of the first big differences that kind of hit me was the fact that everything is much more academic here. No matter what class you take, everyone takes it absolutely seriously, like it was your major. So you need to be very good at time management in order to survive here as a student. Being an international student in general is not easy in the United States, and you have to be prepared for this if you would ever consider studying in the United States. The very first thing is, of course, standing. Depends on what country you come from. It can be a really big issue. So there are many ways, actually, that there are many different paths that can let you be a student in the United States. The very first one that I think is quite popular is basically when people go to America, they apply for various universities and they attend their auditions, and then they hope for the best. They hope that that they can receive some sort of a scholarship or a position like teaching assistantship that is going to allow them get a tuition reduction or maybe even a full tuition reduction. So this will be probably the best option if somebody is lucky or very confident of their playing skills, because if you apply for programs, let's say graduate programs, because teaching assistantships, which provide you not only monthly installments, but also a full ride through your studies in terms of the tuition. You don't need to worry about the money, and all you have to do is just do some teaching at the university where you study. These opportunities are available mostly for graduate students, which means people who do their master's degrees or doctoral degrees. For people who do their bachelor degrees, there are many additional resources, but overall you need to depend on scholarships. So I would say that trying to come to America and just hope that the university can fund you can be successful, but can also be very risky, because you can end up losing a lot of money on plane tickets, and the school might just give you a certain percentage of tuition reduction, which might not be even which might not even be sufficient for your visa requirements. So if you do it, you would be here on F1 visa, which is a standard student visa. The other path is the one that I took, which is basically trying to find some sort of student exchange program that will let you come to America, and they will cover a huge chunk of your tuition. I did Fulbright scholarship, and there are also certain things that you have to be aware of. If you're doing an exchange program, you will be in America on a different student status. Most likely it's going to be a J1 visa, which comes also with a 2-year home residency stipulation, which means that as soon as you finish your program, you need to fulfill 2-year home residency in your home country before changing your visa status to any immigration visa. So whether it's H-1B, whether it's another type of green card, you need to fulfill the 2-year home residency rule. And it sounds very scary, but it's doable, especially if you plan to do more than one degree in the United States. You can basically go back to your home country each year for 3 or 4 months, and cumulatively combine all these months at the end of your education, and then come back, do a little bit more, and then you would be eligible for any other visa, an immigrant visa. It's also possible that you might want to use the education from America and go back to your home country. And in this case, you don't really need to worry about it. Actually, J1 visa would be even preferred because it comes with many additional opportunities that the F1 visa doesn't have. For example, on J1 visa, you can get a permission to work off campus. And these jobs are much better paid than on-campus employment. And yeah, basically you can get a permission and work, which is great to work as a student. On F1, on a traditional student visa, it's a little bit tricky because you can work on campus, but if you want to work off campus, then you need to register in a special class, which is called CPT. And this class allows you to work a certain amount of hours off campus, which might help you with your tuition, housing costs, but these units usually also cost money. So it's very difficult to get funding from scholarships in order to afford this extra credit and be able to work off campus. And there's also another stipulation. You can apply for a CPT class after 1 year of studying in the United States. So this is a little bit tricky. The third option is to come here on the O1 visa, which is a visa for individuals with extraordinary ability or achievements. However, in order to obtain this visa, you would most likely need to find a good lawyer in the United States, which can cost quite a lot of money, a few thousands of dollars. And on this visa, you can be a student, and you can also perform off campus if you're applying for O1 as a musician. So it gives you more opportunities, but it's expensive and very difficult to get. So now, money aside and visa status aside, being in the United States as a student is much different. So what I can tell you is that people have so many misconceptions what it's like to study in the United States. First of all, if you're a bachelor student, your degree would be longer. Doing a bachelor degree in the United States takes 4 years, and you will have quite a lot of academics. There are also many people who double major. They do something else. They do, let's say, physics and music. And at first, you might think that these people do not practice as much, but that's completely not true. I've seen so many people taking a lot of academic classes, even classes not connected with music, and they still play incredibly well. So American universities in general, they put quite a different emphasis. There are also conservatories which are more focused purely on the music instruction. But I would say if you're from Europe, probably you would get the most if you came here to study at a university. Graduate studies are also quite different. There's a strong emphasis on academics and playing. You still need to play. You're not expected to participate in as many competitions as you're expected to participate when you're in Europe. When I was a student, basically each of us participated in at least 2 or 3 competitions a year. Here it simply doesn't happen, not because people don't want to, it's because people have very little time to do all these extra things. The United States is huge, so very often if you want to go to a competition, you would need to fly, and it's costly. And it's very competitive too. I'm not going to lie. The level of competitions is very high. There are many people from around the world. People think that the United States is like one country, because it is, but when you're here, you will very quickly notice that each state almost feels like a country. And when you go to competitions, it feels like a huge international festival with so many names, but basically people come from different countries. Very often these are also international students who study in the United States, so it can get very competitive. Another thing when you're a graduate student here is that you need to be quite fluent with the language, and basically there are no excuses. You need to pass a very famous TOEFL exam, and people expect you to write well. It might also depend on a university, but if you're thinking about these more prestigious programs, then you have to know that at the very beginning of your studies, you will be obligated to take a research technique class, and your writing will have to be much more scientific. If you do your master's degree, you will feel it, but if you do your doctorate degree, you will really feel it, because professors are going to look at every sentence you write, and every single thing that you write has to be based on a proper source. It's quite difficult at first, but then you get used to it. When I studied in Poland, I read quite a lot of dissertations, and I've noticed that very often people write about their dissertation about a particular composition. This doesn't happen that often here in the United States. If you're doing master's degree and you're writing purely about the performance, it's possible, but in general, people prefer more academic writing with something scientific in it. What I can say is that the type of dissertation where you copy half of the page from a different resource, a biographical resource or an article, this is not going to be passed here in the United States. It's you need to have something very unique when you write, and you need to identify your niche, your topic very well. So when I did my doctorate, I wrote about the effects of background music on cognitive processing. People don't write, at least in Poland, when people study classical guitar, they don't really go into these other topics. When you do your doctorate degree in the United States, also, it's not like you're doing just the performance. You need to pick an academic major and one academic elective, and the other one can be a performance elective. So, for example, you can do music psychology as your academic major, and you can do composition and maybe music librarianship, something like that. So these things are much different, and if you're choosing this as your elective or as your major, people will expect you to achieve the highest level. So I did music teaching and learning, which was strongly focused on music psychology, music education, and this is why I came up with this topic, the effects of background music on cognitive processing. You will be expected almost to go out of your comfort zone in order to complete successfully your studies here. But also I wanted to talk a little bit about the other degrees, because if you're looking for something much more performance focused, then you can always apply for a graduate certificate at some American university. Basically, with a graduate certificate, all you do, you're not like other students who take a lot of classes. All you do is just focus on performing music. You have a lesson with your professor, and there are absolutely no classes in addition to that. This is quite good, but and it's also more affordable because you have less units. But if I could give an advice, it's the best thing about studying in America is actually doing something different. So if you do graduate certificate, then you won't really get this experience of knowing what it's like to be a student in America. Another thing is, let's say you do your bachelor degree in Poland, and you want to do your master's degree in the United States. You have to be aware that IERF, International Education Research Foundation, is not necessarily going to recognize all of your classes. And even the university might not recognize some of your classes. So let's say if you took research techniques in Poland, it's very unlikely that the American university is going to recognize this and let you transfer this credit, which would basically help you with the tuition costs, because each unit costs money. So you might need to take these classes. Also, there are many money-wise, there are many hidden costs. If you are not very good at music theory, orchestration, or some of the things that that are required in your program, it's possible that you might need to take some additional classes, which would be also paid extra. So everything seems quite different, and I would say even people who feel quite comfortable in certain areas, let's say a Polish composer who was very good at composition in Poland and very good at the analysis in Poland, it doesn't necessarily mean that he'll feel very comfortable in this new environment. What I've noticed is that the way you analyze music differs a little bit. In America, you use Roman numeral analysis, and you have to be very good at naming chords. They use quite a different system for naming chords, which is actually based on the Roman numeral analysis. They also take, when you analyze a piece, you also need to know exactly which analysis type, which type of analysis you're using. So it's much more structured in general. There's much less emphasis on your personal perception of a piece, and you have to come up with something what is actually in the score, I would say. Another misconception is that, and it happens quite often, people think that in America the level of playing is lower. I wouldn't say that it's lower, I would say that it's probably exactly the same. It's very high. I think the reason why many people have this misconception is because when you have American students, they don't very often compete in Europe because they're so busy with their other classes. Being a full-time student really feels like a full-time job. And also, the other thing is that the level of universities can really vary in the United States. You might have some classical guitar programs which are extremely prestigious, and the other ones might have still good students, and there might be also some guitar programs which are not that good. So it can really vary, and making a when you shape your opinion about the level of music in America, you really need to travel a lot and see all these different programs, because it can be quite different depending on the state. What else I could tell you? In general, if you're considering applying for one of the American programs, I would say that you really need to be prepared to go outside of your comfort zone, because being good, especially these days when you have so many good players, being good is not good enough to have something guaranteed in life. Here, especially as an international student, you might need to be prepared to work really hard, take all opportunities you can. Let's say after 1 year of studying, if you get some sort of job which is not even connected with your degree, it can be a desk job processing some documents for a completely different department, it's very important to take it, because everything like that contributes to your overall success and increases your chances of finishing the degree. Also, if you have all these additional skills, you'll notice that you will be a much more valuable teaching assistant, because even though you teach classical guitar most of the time, you will notice that there's a lot of there are many additional tasks. Some of them might be a little bit more bureaucratic. You might be responsible for, let's say, running a concert series. You need to know how to obtain funding for concert series. You might be good at grant proposal writing. Quite different skills. So playing is simply not good enough to guarantee anything. It can, but unless you're willing to risk not getting full funding and you wouldn't care that much, then I would say it's good to prepare yourself for all scenarios. Getting out of the comfort zone and keeping your GPA high. GPA is extremely important, especially when you are an undergrad. When you're a graduate student, it's just expected. You need to have a certain GPA, and if you go lower than that, then people might question you a little bit when they think of some extra opportunities that might help you with finishing the studies. So overall, I think what I did was quite good, even though it took a lot of time and it was very stressful, which is basically getting a sense of what it's like to be a student in Europe, and then also getting this experience of being a student at one of the American universities, because this will guarantee you a comprehensive knowledge. Be aware of all the stipulations and be very careful when you calculate funding, because it's very easy to run out of money here. The cost of living, depending on the state, but in states like New York, California, can be extremely high, and counting on only on your own personal income can be very risky, because if you have a rent that can cost $2,000 for a single room, even if you decide to share a room in certain areas, it may cost around $1,000. There are all even more expensive cities. You can run out of money quite quickly. So always ask questions, reach out to your program for help with finding affordable housing, and always plan for the worst. Because then you'll be prepared if the things get better. So I hope you enjoyed this little talk about what it's like being a student in the United States. I hope that some of you are going to pursue this career path, because I can vouch that this can be very internally rewarding to get this comprehensive experience, and also to know what it's like to be a student on another continent. It's pretty cool, but it's a bumpy road, and be prepared for it. But at the end of this road, you'll be much stronger, you'll feel much better, and you'll believe in yourself much more. So I hope you're going to pursue it. Thank you.
Let me introduce myself. My name is I'm a member of academic staff at Stanisław Moniuszko Academy of Music in Gdańsk. I've been asked by organizers of the 4th German-Polish Festival of Young Musicians in Bremen, this year also with participants from Lithuania and Ukraine, to describe to the international audience music education system in Poland and in the neighboring country, Lithuania. There are quite a lot of similarities between Polish and Lithuanian concepts of music education, as their roots are the same. The music school system in Soviet Union, with its division on primary and secondary level, with so-called special music schools for the most talented kids and youth, with an emphasis on professional training from the very beginning of instrumental education, and to achieve this goal, also a presence of general music subjects in curricula of music schools like ear training, basics of music theory, history of music, musical forms, etc. I will describe it briefly, taking Poland as the first example. Since 1945, there were private and run by government musical institutions which were founded in many cities of Poland. After a few years of coexisting of private and public sector, in Stalin's era they were merged and put into one public system of musical education. Little reforms, small changes have been made from time to time, but the system has stayed in the same shape up till now. As I mentioned before, we've got elementary, primary music schools and advanced secondary music schools. Our learning system is based on individual courses in the principal instrument performance, as well as vocal courses in the secondary education, group courses in general music knowledge, and courses of group performance like chamber music, choir, orchestra, and in a few schools, even a big band. Polish music system has been designed in Soviet style, but there is at least one Western element in it, Dalcroze method or Eurythmics, which is taught in primary music schools during the first 3 years of education. The method was developed in the early 20th century by Swiss musician and educator Emile Jacques Dalcroze. Eurythmics teaches concepts of rhythm, structure and musical expression using movement. Kids wear special costumes like in a ballet school for this type of activity. They move a lot during lessons and learn through play. Education in primary school lasts 6 years in the so-called children department, or 4 years in the youth department for teenagers. Instrumental lessons are individual, which enables teachers to adjust the school curriculum according to the students' advancement. Music theory, eurythmics and listening music classes are held in small groups. Pupils attend also orchestras classes, chamber ensembles and choir. Education in a secondary music school lasts also 6 years and has got in the curriculum principal instrument, plus, among others, such courses like ear training, harmony, history of music, musical forms, choir, orchestra. Every student, individually or in group performance, contributes to concerts in the school's concert hall, but also in other venues, creating musical settings for a wide array of festivities, meetings, and other significant events in their local environment. An important element of education is students' participation in music contests, both in Poland and internationally. As mentioned previously, the first network of music schools covered only bigger cities of Poland. In the 1960s and 70s, more and more schools were established, also in smaller towns. Another important milestone was the year 1989, a transformation into a free market economy in Poland. A private music school sectors has arrived in the scene again, covering gaps like early education, Suzuki method schools, which start instrumental training very early, offering violin lessons for 3-4 years old kids, Popular music courses like pop singing, electric guitar, world music instruments, etc. But also establishing music schools in smaller towns or even villages or suburban area of big cities. They, let's say, supplement the network and enable more children to learn an instrument. And now some statistics. We've got around 600 music schools in Poland. Almost half of them, 260, are public, which means they are run and financed by the Ministry of Culture and National Heritage. Around 130 music schools are run by local authorities, but in great percent co-financed by the Ministry of Culture and National Heritage. The rest are private schools, but over 100 of them follow the same curriculum as public music schools, and their certificates are equal. In Polish system, there are also music schools which combine musical and general education under one roof in the same building. We've got in Poland around 40 such schools. Most of them have got a dormitory. Students spend time from Monday till Friday living in a dorm and return home to their families for weekends only. The concept is based on so-called special music schools for very talented children and youth in Soviet Union. The idea is that they don't waste time on commuting and could devote themselves to music only. The other reason is to allow talented kids living in small towns, villages, to have contact with academic teachers and high-level music community. Many famous music institutions around the world conduct such projects, but mostly on weekend meetings basis, not merging general and music education like in this example. I know at least one case from Finland, Sibelius Academy in Helsinki, ran for many years Junior Academy for Talented Kids and Teenagers. They are students of their local music schools, but from time to time they arrive to capital city to have lessons with academic teachers, to take part in various additional courses, workshops, etc. The goal of Junior Academy is to introduce musically gifted kids and teenagers to a high-level music community at a young age. The infrastructure of music schools in Poland is in very good condition. Some buildings are completely new, built with the financial assistance of European Union in recent years. Some have got their location in old noble people's houses, small palaces, etc. There are also music schools which received their new locations thanks to the transformation period at the beginning of 90s. Edifices left by Communist Party. We could say they are beneficiaries of the transformation period. Every music school has got various instruments for renting, a music library and a concert hall. Many music schools buildings, especially concert halls, have been in recent years refurbished, very often with the financial assistance of EU funds. A music school in smaller towns with its concert hall, professionally trained musicians and educators serves as a high culture center for local community. An interesting and quite unusual example of such cultural activities comes from my town. I live in Sopot, a town of around 30,000 inhabitants. Its music school is run by local authorities, and Stanisław Moniuszko is a patron of the school, like the Academy of Music in Gdańsk. Last year we celebrated 200th anniversary of Moniuszko's birth. The composer, called a father of Polish national opera, is a very important figure in the history of Polish and European Romantic music. The music school in Sopot organized in May 2019 a street game Stanisław Moniuszko for its students, their families and also all interested inhabitants. A game scenario was based on facts from Moniuszko's life, characters of his operas, etc. This is a poster of the game with its route. Sopot itself is strongly connected with opera. Of course, such a small town hasn't got an opera house, but the Forest Opera, an open-air amphitheater with a capacity of above 4,000 seats and an orchestra pit that can contain up to 110 musicians. The above example shows how music schools try to be active, creative, and keep contact with their local communities. Music schools are also very active in organizing workshops, competitions on regional or Polish or even international scale. The primary music school in Augustów, whose teachers and pupils took part at the festival in Bremen last year, organizes bi-yearly international piano competition. Unfortunately, this year edition has to be cancelled due to the pandemic situation. All music and in general artistic schools in Poland are under pedagogical supervision of the Artistic Education Center at the Ministry of Culture and National Heritage in Warsaw. There is one very general curriculum for music schools. Based on it, every teacher or group of teachers from the same school write their own teaching program. There are also teachers who write and publish their own methods. I'd like to present a few examples. Tatiana Stachak, a guitarist and a composer, has published many valuable and beloved by young guitarists didactic pieces of music. First class guitar, I play what I know, another and many others. Antoni Cofalik from Krakow, based on his great experience, wrote ABC for violin and other interesting books. Dorota Obijalska, a violin teacher from a music school in Olsztyn, is an author of a very popular among young violinists music sheet entitled Fiddling Notes for Violin and Piano, with Marcin Wawrok as a co-author. The Dwarfs Are Playing the Piano, written by a very experienced teacher from Warsaw, Maria Grzebalska, and so on and so on. The amount of didactic materials from Poland and abroad, which are at teachers' disposal nowadays, is really huge and versatile. Teachers also broadly used multimedia resources like YouTube to listen and observe famous musicians, Facebook to easily contact pupils and their parents, smartphones applications like metronome, camera or audio recorder. They have been especially useful in the recent pandemic period. Teachers in music schools, as well as teachers of general education in Poland, are encouraged to develop their knowledge and didactic abilities through a system of 4 levels of positions. The lowest one, a young teacher, is called internship teacher. The next level is a contract teacher, then designed teacher, and this is a permanent full-time position, and a diploma teacher. The highest, but honorary only, is professor of education. As a salary of teachers depends on a position, during the first 10, 12, 15 years of their work at schools, they raise their didactic knowledge participating in various workshops, seminars, even post-diploma studies. They also should be active as organizers of events which serve their students, their schools, and local community as well. Different types of concerts, competitions, or even street games are examples of such activities. How creative teachers and headmasters could be, the pandemic period has displayed to a full extent. I would like to present two examples. The first is a recruitment process to the music school in Gdynia through short films in which students introduce to would-be candidates their instruments. Let's take the guitar as an example.
Hej, jestem Wiktoria i dziś chciałabym opowiedzieć Wam parę słów o gitarze klasycznej.
Cześć, jestem Hania, mam 14 lat i chodzę do 6. klasy Szkoły Muzycznej w Gdyni.
Cześć, jestem Ania, mam 14 lat i chodzę do 2. klasy 2. stopnia Szkoły Muzycznej.
Gitara jest instrumentem strunowym szarpanym.
Na gitarze gra się palcami obu rąk. Lewa ręka dociska struny na gryfie, a prawa szarpie je nad pudłem rezonansowym.
Składa się z główki, gryfu, pudła rezonansowego i oczywiście 6 strun.
Jeśli chcemy uzyskać piękny dźwięk, musimy zapuszczać paznokcie. Gitara to stosunkowo cichy instrument, więc możemy grać praktycznie wszędzie.
A jeśli ćwiczymy regularnie i staramy się, to możemy wyjeżdżać na konkursy, gdzie zdobywamy doświadczenie, poznajemy nowe osoby.
Więc naprawdę warto wziąć ją do ręki, by nauczyć się chociaż paru akordów.
Bardzo lubię grać na gitarze i zapraszam wszystkich na egzaminy wstępne do Szkoły Muzycznej.
Tak więc moim zdaniem warto jest chodzić do szkoły muzycznej i bardzo Was wszystkich do tego zachęcam.
What students of music schools have lacked the most during pandemic period was playing together. Marek Rogalski, a young conductor of orchestra and choir of the music school in Gdańsk-Orunia, made an arrangement of a popular song about spring for choir and orchestra. Students have recorded their parts at home using smartphones, and the final result of mixing all voices and instrumental parts sounds very promising. Let's listen to it. On Lithuanian music school system. Lithuania has got a thick network of music schools which cover the whole country. There are around 100 schools. A curriculum consists of a principal instrument training and music theory courses, chamber music, orchestra, choir. In many public schools, there is also a section of folk instruments. Students can choose between birbinę or kankles. Birbinę is a traditional Lithuanian wind instrument. Its very special sonority is a mixture of oboe and saxophone's sound. Kankles is some sort of cymbalom. Both instruments are traditional, but they build up their classical repertoire using transcriptions and commissioning new pieces from contemporary composers. In Lithuania, there are 5 secondary music schools and 3 music conservatories where music and general education are included in their curriculum. They are based in Vilnius, Kaunas, Šiauliai and Klaipėda. Apart from these specialized music schools, there are many facilities for talented pupils. National competitions for all students of music at different levels and for different age groups, for all kinds of instruments or singing. There are some international competitions taking place in Lithuania as well. Private tuition is not very popular in Lithuania. Non-formal music education is provided by some private music schools, for example, Yamaha, schools of aesthetical training or clubs. Are both presented systems faultless? Probably no. Parents complain that curricula are overloaded. Besides instrumental training twice a week, every student has got at least 4 additional obligatory lessons every week. Teachers struggles more than before to activate students, how to convince them to practice regularly, how to convince them to love classical music, dedicate themselves to high culture. I hope such initiative, like the International Festival and Workshop in Bremen, will motivate our students to make a bigger effort. Meetings with new teachers and students from other countries, exchange of ideas and solutions are very valuable, fruitful and profitable. I would like to appreciate Jolanta and Maciej Ziemski's and their collaborators' great work, which I'm sure will improve the quality of music education in European countries in the near future. Thanks for your attention. Hopefully see you in person next year in Bremen.
Hallo, ich bin Jewgeni Czerepanow und ich spiele Klavier. Heute im Rahmen des Deutsch-Polnischen Festivals für junge Musiker 2020 in Bremen möchte ich einen ganz interessanten Vortrag halten. Ich wurde gebeten, über die Unterschiede zwischen deutschem und russischem System, Ausbildungssystem für Musiker zu erzählen, die mir aufgefallen sind. Ich bin ja 20 Jahre in Russland zur Musikschule oder Musikhochschule gegangen, studiert, danach nach Deutschland gekommen und so möchte ich heute meine eigene Geschichte erzählen, wie ich meine Musikausbildung bekommen habe. Ich werde natürlich am Beispiel meines eigenen Hauptfaches, nämlich Klaviers, das Ganze erzählen. Wie die meisten kleinen Kinder in Russland bin ich mit 5 oder vielleicht mit 6 Jahren zu einer Musikschule gegangen. Das ist eine Musikschule gewesen, nicht weit vom Zuhause, weil praktisch jeder Stadtteil eine Musikschule hat. Die Musikschulen sind ganz unabhängig voneinander. Man muss auch aber nicht unbedingt zur Musikschule gehen, die im eigenen Stadtteil befindet. Und da die Musikschulen ganz oft durch Staat gefördert waren, war es nicht so teuer für die Eltern. Allerdings, es wurde nicht jedes Kind aufgenommen. Am Anfang, also mit 6 Jahren, musste man eine ganz kleine Aufnahmeprüfung machen. ob man musikalisches Gehör hat und Sinn für Rhythmus. Und wenn man aufgenommen war, dann fing ja die Musikausbildung an. Wie sieht es denn aus, die Musikausbildung in so einer Musikschule für kleine Kinder? Einmal in der Woche hat man eine Stunde Musikgeschichte. Einmal in der Woche Gehörbildung. 2 Stunden in der Woche Chor und zweimal für 45 Minuten ein Instrumentalunterricht. Also in meinem Fall Klavierunterricht. So konnte meine Klavierlehrerin sich ausschließlich auf das Klavierspiel konzentrieren. Ich kam ja schon vorbereitet zur Klavierstunde. Ich hatte ja schon Gehörbildung davor. Ich wusste ja schon Bescheid, wie die Töne heißen und vielleicht auch, wie die Akkorde heißen. Später. Also die Musiklehrerin konnte sich vollständig auf das Spiel während der Stunde konzentrieren. Und das ist auch sinnvoll gewesen, weil am Ende jedes halben Jahres musste man eine kleine Prüfung spielen oder sogar ein öffentliches Konzert, das aus 4 Stücken, mindestens 4 Stücken bestehen musste. Das musste eine Etüde sein, es musste ein polyphonisches Werk sein, zum Beispiel aus der Barockzeit von Bach. Es musste eine klassische Sonate sein, ein Satz oder vielleicht 2. und 3. Satz. Und es musste ein romantisches bzw. ein Werk aus der modernen Zeit sein. Natürlich, das ging ja ab der 2. Klasse. Am Anfang, wenn man ja erst lernt, die Töne zu spielen, die Tasten zu spielen, da ist man natürlich froh, ganz kleine Stücke zu spielen. Eine Musikschulezeit ist meistens 7 Jahre gewesen. Man hatte also ein ganz genaues vorgeschriebenes Programm, was man jedes Jahr machen soll. Dieses Programm wurde ja schon vorgelegt und man musste daran halten. Natürlich, ja, die besonders talentierten Kinder konnten auch viel mehr als 4 Stücke spielen. Und es könnten auch viel kompliziertere Werke sein als die empfohlenen Werke in der Liste. Da sehen wir ja schon den Unterschied zu den Musikschulen in Deutschland. Wie sieht es hier denn aus, wenn ein Kind ein Musikinstrument erlernen will? Man sucht ja einen privaten Musiklehrer oder geht zu einer privaten Musikschule oder staatlichen Musikschule. Dort gibt es auch keine genauen Vorschriften, was man unbedingt machen muss, sondern es wird ja vorgeschlagen, angeboten. Aber man macht es so, wie man will als Schüler. So bin ich immer vormittags ins Gymnasium gegangen und nachmittags hatte ich Musikschule. Das heißt, ich bin da 3 oder 4 Tage die Woche gewesen für unterschiedliche Stunden. Mit der 7. Klasse, als ich aufgehört habe, als ich fertig mit Musikschule war, hatte ich ja die Wahl, falls ich meine Musiklaufbahn fortsetzen will. Ich könnte zum Musikcollege gehen für 4 Jahre und danach zur Musikhochschule. Oder was ich auch getan habe, ich habe die Schule gewechselt. Es gibt in Russland nur wenige solche besonderen, speziellen Musikschulen, wo alle Fächer zusammen kombiniert sind. Diese Musikschulen haben auch im Stundenplan Mathe und Physik, aber danach kommen die Musikgeschichte und Gehörbildung. Und natürlich der Schwerpunkt liegt sehr, sehr stark an den Musikfächern. Ich habe ja zu dieser Schule gewechselt und war dort in der 8. Klasse. Aber einige von meinen Klassenkameraden waren schon in dieser Schule ab der 1. Klasse. Und so haben die sich schon von Anfang an als kleine Kinder bzw. deren Eltern sich entschieden, dass die Kinder möglichst einen musikalischen Berufslaufbahn gehen werden. Weil diese spezielle Musikschule war darauf gerichtet, die Kinder direkt für die Musikhochschulen vorzubereiten. Und dementsprechend war auch dann die Ausbildung sehr, sehr ernst. Zum Beispiel hatten wir jede 2-3 Wochen in der Musikgeschichte unbedingt eine kleine Prüfung, eine Arbeit über irgendeinen Komponisten oder über seine Stücke und so weiter und so fort. Die Schwierigkeit solcher Fächer wie Musikharmonie oder Musikgeschichte oder Gehörbildung war sehr stark. So gut, dass ich danach überhaupt keine Probleme hatte, eine Aufnahmeprüfung zu jeder Musikhochschule zu machen in der Welt. Aber dieses System, dass man jedes halbe Jahr, am Ende jedes halben Jahres ein kleines Konzert oder eine Prüfung spielt, mit mindestens diesen 4 Werken, Etüde, Polyphonie, Sonate und Romantik, ist immer da geblieben. So musste ich praktisch jedes halbe Jahr ein kleines musikalisches Programm 20, 30 Minuten lang vorbereiten. Dazu in der 9. und 10. Klasse für die Pianisten kamen solche Fächer wie Korrepetition und Kammermusik. Dort war es genauso, jedes halbe Jahr ein neues Programm. Dieses System wurde auch später in der Musikhochschule fortgesetzt. Nur natürlich die Werke, die man vorbereitet hat, waren deutlich ernster und länger. Aber im Grunde genommen war es genau das Gleiche. Es ist natürlich sehr gut gewesen, so eine starke Ausbildung und Studium zu haben. Allerdings, leider hatte man überhaupt keine Wahl. Man hatte ein ganz bestimmtes vorgeschriebenes Programm. Man konnte gar nicht wählen, welche Fächer man haben möchte, welche aber nicht. So mussten die Studenten alle auf die gleiche Weise das Ganze lernen. Und später gab es zu viele überqualifizierte Spezialisten, die keinen Job gefunden haben. Viele von meinen Klassenkameraden haben mit Musik aufgehört nach dem Studium und machen was ganz anderes, weil es nicht genug Arbeitsplätze gibt. Das ist der Unterschied zu Deutschland. Als ich nach Deutschland gekommen bin zum Studium, war ich am Anfang zuerst ganz verwirrt. Es gab keinen genauen Stundenplan. Ich musste selbst wählen, was ich lernen möchte, was ich studieren möchte, welche Vorlesungen ich besuchen möchte und wann. Das ist am Anfang verwirrend gewesen, aber danach habe ich auch dieses System verstanden, weil nicht jeder unbedingt ein Konzertmusiker, ein Konzertgeiger, ein Orchestermusiker oder Hochschullehrer werden will. Ja, es gibt ganz viele Studiengänge und jeder Student, jede Studentin können auswählen das, was die wollen. Und das fand ich natürlich ganz, ganz toll. Diese Freiheit der Wahl, was auch hier in dem deutschen Ausbildungssystem und im Studium üblich ist, das mich zuerst ganz verwirrt hat, später hat mich ganz fasziniert. Ich konnte während meines Studiums unterschiedliche Vorlesungen besuchen, ganz interessante Vorlesungen, die ich in Russland nie im Leben besuchen könnte, weil die gar nicht zu meinem Studiengang gehören. Durch diese Freiheit, die Möglichkeit, einige Vorlesungen später in weiteren Semestern nachzuholen, konnte ich mich auf die Dinge konzentrieren, die für mich in diesem Moment wichtig waren. Zum Beispiel Vorbereitung zu den Konzerten oder Klavierwettbewerben. Und so finde ich auch dieses System viel besser, wenn man die Wahl hat, wenn die Studenten, die Schüler so früh wie möglich sich Gedanken machen, was die tatsächlich möchten. Und nicht am Ende des tollen Studiums, der besten Ausbildung der Welt stehen und gar nicht wissen, was die damit anfangen können, wo die das nutzen können, wer braucht das überhaupt. Und dann ist man dann als Musiker ganz unglücklich. Das ist doch das Wichtigste, tatsächlich glücklich zu sein und so früh wie möglich sich Gedanken darüber machen, was braucht man dafür. Das ganze Thema ist natürlich sehr komplex und ich habe jetzt nur ganz bisschen darüber erzählt. Ich freue mich daher sehr auf eure Fragen, auf eure Anregungen zu diesem Thema und werde mich sehr freuen, eure Fragen zu beantworten. Wir sehen uns bald. Tschüss!